Okay, I'm going to call the Municipal Building Commission meeting of January 22nd, 2025, opposite what the agenda says, to order at 5:30. And for the record, Andrew Acosta, Jerry Freecott, Harry DeSisto, Jackie Romanicki, and I are here. That gives us a quorum. We also have Mark Zawatsky from Port Construction, Amy Reilinger, the Library Director, and Brian Valentine, Jessica White, and Angela Olson, correct, from LLB Architects. Before we get going, we don't have any minutes to approve. We also, I don't want to forget, we have a bill to pay for design services through December 31st. Mark, is that in order to be paid?
Yes, I've written to Brooke and confirmed my review and recommendation for payment.
Okay, so is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. One other thing that you people need to be aware of, which is that, as you remember from 2 weeks ago, the permanent PFAS plant, we need to hire an OPM.
Yeah.
It appears that the ball was dropped a little bit, but with the guidance of the mayor and the help of Carol Brown, we have picked the ball back up. And our request for services for an OPM will be going in the Central Register tomorrow. And I handed out the schedule so you can see what the dates are that will be in that. Okay. What's important for us to understand is that in February, the bids for the RFS are going to come in on the 14th. And so we have a school building committee meeting here at 5:30 on the 19th. And so after that, we are going to shortlist those that we're going to interview for the OPM for that project. And on the 26th, we're going to have a special meeting in order to interview and make a recommendation to the mayor as to who to hire. So therefore, make sure that you have in your schedule, in February, we got the 5th, the 19th, and the 26th, all 3 nights for meetings. And then March 5th will be our regular meeting. We had tentatively scheduled March 19th in order to be able to make a recommendation on the bids, but it appears that the bids are going to be pushed back 2 weeks, so that date may disappear. Also, just to let you all know, the mayor set up two Zoom meetings, one of which was today, with our representatives from our 2 senators and our congressional office. And it appears that there is no way around Buy American, Build American, and so therefore the costs are going to be substantially higher for that project. The mayor is probably going to go down to the city council for an increase in the bonding amount at the first meeting in February. There probably will be a public hearing at the first meeting in March of the city council. And that number will be significantly higher than we had anticipated in the past, but it's something that has to be done. And this is a typical law that was passed with all sorts of good intentions, but it does have some unintended consequences, least of which is that it could add another $7 or $8 million to the cost of that project. I hope that that's wrong, and we won't know till the bids come in, but at least that's the update on that project. So, on to the...
Jack, where are those meetings going to be? Here?
To be determined.
I'm sorry?
To be determined,
Okay.
but probably because of the Conservation Commission, so it's very likely they'll be here. But I'm going to have... Brooke is out sick, so I couldn't schedule things with her for this room, but I suspect we will have the regular meeting at the beginning of February at City Hall, but then the other two, well, clearly the school building committee will be here, so our meeting would be here after that on the 19th, and then I'm thinking the 26th may be here, or it may be at City Hall, depending on whether the Conservation Commission's meeting. Okay? So, on to the main event of the evening. And which one of you is going to tell us everything we need to know?
Well, I guess I'll start off and just give you some general statistics. What we're going to be reviewing tonight is the design development package prepared by LLB. At the end of this evening, after all the questions and conversation, the request would be to seek approval to allow them to move into construction documentation. Then Amy, I, the board, the library board, and we have all been working together. We've had a progression, which you guys can talk about, but I just want to indicate that, we have no hazardous materials within the flooring or adjacent areas based on the hazardous material report that was published.
That's good.
Yeah, and, we can talk later about the budget, the costs, and the savings from modifying or adjusting or eliminating phasing. So there are a number of areas in which we'll have a general discussion, get your thoughts and feelings, and then hopefully we'll be able to progress forward in the design phase to hopefully enable us to begin procurement of this project in the next month or so. So,
Yeah, it seems to me that we ought to focus on, first of all, what you're proposing to do, the floorings and colors and patterns and all the other things that we need to talk about. But
Understood,
at the end
sir.
of that, I think we need to talk about the timing. We need to talk about whether we're within budget. We need to talk about how we would be in budget if we're not. And I think we ought to visit the issue of whether we close the library down for a month, or we go through pain for 3 months with a phase project, what the delta is in cost as well as stress one way or another. And then the other thing that don't want to forget this, but a preview for later on in the meeting, is that, yeah, when school is out in July and August, maybe the library gets more use. So we might want to look at the timing here of the bid. Do we want the job to start in June and go through the entire summer? Do we want it to start in June and finish by the 1st of July? Or do we want it to start September 1st and be done at the end of September? Those are things that we need to bear in mind. But I think the first thing to do is figure out the what, and then we can figure out the how much and when.
agreed. So without further ado, I turn it over to LLB for the design development presentation.
Yeah, thank you. I think a few weeks ago you saw some updated versions that we've been working on with Amy and our team to kind of hone in on exactly which carpets are going where, what the patterns are, and the work area. I'm Brian Valentine, by the way, principal with the LLB Architects. With me is Angela Olson and Jessica White, they are I'm going to turn it over to them to kind of go through the ins and outs of where the work scope is and some of the samples that you see in front of you. We'll certainly touch on, as Mark mentioned, the hazmat survey. We did send our team through. They did take their sampling in various sections throughout the library. We have a comprehensive report that indicates that those samples all came back none detected. So that's good news for the work.
Not surprising, considering the fact that it was 1990,
It was in the 90s.
1993 when the building was completely redone. Hopefully,
May have been addressed at that point then, yeah.
I'm sure that it was. Jackie and I were on the commission then, but we're so old we can't remember.
So we did work through we did work through the hazmat survey. We also are working with indoor air quality consultant to develop a plan for air testing throughout construction, and so she's given us her intended plan, and as we work through whether or not we phase this thing, how often, and how many tests she takes on what basis will be refined as we put this out to bid.
So just along those lines, I would imagine that if it's a phased project, we're gonna be blocking off with huge plastic sheets or something?
Yeah, we
areas
would,
that we're working
yeah, I think
in?
when we interviewed with you folks, we showed you the plan that we did at another library and basically made that an appendix to the project and showed where we expected temporary partitions and such. And I think as Mark is gonna, touch on, and we'll touch on in a little bit, is there any realized savings from any less of those moves, ups and downs, remobilizations throughout 3 months versus 1 month, so.
I would guess there'd be fewer tests than if you did
Precise,
it all in the
yes,
course of 1
that's
month.
why she's come up with a plan based on the phasing idea, but if it doesn't go phase, then maybe there's a reduction in the quantity of her tests for sure. So something to be discussed for sure. We also are responsible for hiring a move manager. So the move manager has come up with, met with Amy and folks on her staff to develop a move management plan, again, along with the phasing idea. Marcus captured those rough order magnitude costs in the budget that I think you see in front of you. But again, if the phases aren't taken advantage of and it's one move and the movers are there for less time, less duration, there might be a savings realized there as well. So a couple of important things to talk about when it comes to phasing or not phasing for sure. And then we also did get the DD package cost estimated. We've developed 5 alternates that we felt were relatively comfortable on bid day if you were to open bids and find out you needed some real savings. There are 5 deducts that we highlighted in the cost estimate, but of course that's to be discussed with you folks and decide what order we ultimately want to put those in. But these are just some existing photos that you see of the library as it sits today. This is a diagram that we've been repeatedly showing. Again, obviously, you folks are very savvy. You know what construction documents are. These are our presentation documents. We do have a set of construction DD documents. Mark has seen those. I do owe him a specification that is completed, but it's a draft DD spec as well. But these are graphic representations of the scope of work for presentation purposes.
Go back to that chart for just 1 minute. Just remind us of which floor is which.
The first floor is bottom right, and then it goes up to the second floor, and then third floor, bottom left, fourth floor above that.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Inspiration that the team has pulled was from the window patterning around the building, trying to integrate some of those concepts early on just to give us a place to start and move from. I think what you have in front of you, correct, is these next few floor plans that are actually colored out, representative as best they could be with the selected or preferred options. So, Angela, if you'd like to.
Yeah, and I will say, so we had our first round of our DD presentation on the 27th of December, where we met and reviewed a bunch of options. We talked about like wayfinding of doing different colors on each floor level. So I really think that Amy in the library got to take that and digest it and get an understanding of what they liked and what they didn't like, and then could come back and give us feedback. So there were rounds from then till now of sending links, sending other options, carpeting, samples. She has a stack of samples at the library. So this is where we've come. And they really wanted to stick with the gray color scheme throughout the general library on all floor levels, just sticking with the same carpeting on all floor levels, and then doing something special in the children's library. So
Before you go on, there's a simplification that went on. There were large patterns, there were circles, it was a very playful initial design
Yeah.
that LLB had generated. And I know that Amy and I and the library team and the board, they thought about it. They thought about the durability, the long-term implications of that, and would it potentially become dated? And I think that as the progression from December into early January and then into the middle of January really began to simplify. And not only is it more simplified for its playfulness and patterning, but I think if you look at the floor plans, the installation, I think, it's still wayfinding, it's still friendly, it's still open and such, but it's also probably cost-effective from an installation standpoint because now the patterning is more simplified.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that because, we're talking about time to install and cost, and so all of those factors went into Amy and the board and everyone looking at how to create a solution that would be best for the city. So, sorry.
Yeah.
No, it's good ahead.
I'm just gonna walk
Much
through
easier?
you on the screen if it's easier. Carpet types, both of them are the light gray and the dark gray. So, main walking area, we're using the light gray scheme, and then at the stack space, the light gray, we also highlighted some kind of borders, aligning it with certain wall locations. In the multi-purpose room, so we're creating this border, a nice transition. For the children's library, we enlarge it on the next page. This was their option 1 for install. So we have 2 options using the same color palette. I believe this option actually has one less color than the next one. However, taking the library's logo and that kind of geometrical pattern, creating a center point for the children's library space, and dividing the colorways up, but still doing a playful linear pattern and borders, just as the library logo has a border around it essentially. So for the more preschool area here, doing a fun pattern, and then the more teen zone up here. The library director's office, and then the next option 2 was a little bit more fun. We created a herringbone installation with these 4 colors and created a beach scene. So again, Amy's reference was the first option, but they did also like this one. And then the next page is going to level 2.
Before we go up to level 2, so what we're looking at here on the floor,
Yeah.
it looks very much like what's in the hallways of this building.
It's very similar.
I didn't even.
Is it?
It's very similar. It's not the same, but I did notice that as well.
I only saw the one that was right out in the lobby. It
Yeah.
does have a geometrical.
Right, but what I meant was that when, we also are members of the school building committee, and when we started this building, God knows when, 2019, before, when we started construction, before that, we chose things like carpet. And one of the things that impressed us was the resiliency of what I'm looking at here on the floor. I remember they took a cup of water and poured it on, and it just puddled up. It didn't sink in. Is this the same type of material?
I can do that.
And it's a commercial carpet, so it's very, very tightly woven. I think in the presentation, it actually shows, it calls out the construction, what the backing is, all of that.
We give all the durability and spec
Yeah.
information later on in this presentation, so you can take a look. But
Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, I'll reach out and I'll get the submittal on the carpeting used in this building, and then I can provide it to them and they can compare and contrast.
Yeah, that would
Okay,
be.
that would be good. I assume if you contact KBA,
Yeah.
Joe Milani, probably the easiest guy to contact, and he could probably tell you. I'm not saying it has to be the same, it's just that we've been pleased so far with what's in the school.
Right.
Amy, any comments you want to make on the two choices and why you chose one as opposed to the other?
Sure, in the pattern that's up there now, so it's as soon as you walk into the children's room, when you're facing the desk, the carpet sort of branches out to both sides, and the way that room is situated, it's hard, you can't see the preschool area, you can't see the middle school area, and we thought that sort of X would lead you out, like a wayfinding thing. We also like the colors, the more fun in the preschool area. If you're familiar with the floor is lava, there's a lot of fun you can have in that area with little bodies moving around a lot. So that was the fun we had in the kids' room. And then to go with the other gray colors, it just works. It works with the wood, it works with the marble. A lot of our furniture, even the dark wood furniture, has gray tops to begin with. So we wanted to, this is pretty traditional, like as much as I like to be fun and whimsical and my background is with kids, the library as a whole is pretty traditional, and we wanted to keep with that.
Well, the original building is 1907, and it just strikes me that when you do something that's very cutting edge in 2025, by 2030, you may be looking at it and saying, what were they thinking? And we're not replacing this flooring anytime soon.
No.
What is the expected time before we'd have to replace this the next time?
I think most of these carpets have a 15-year limited warranty, but that's obviously just, yeah.
So if it's got a limited warranty for 15 years, we'd hope we'd get 20 years out of this?
For sure. That's, we've seen that in public buildings, medium to high traffic like these libraries in other projects that were done decades ago. So, and these products, when you look through the specs, they're top notch.
And again, using the carpet tile, as you know, if one of them gets stained that you can't take off, or the carpet gets pulled, you can lift them up and replace them from your attic stock. So that also helps with the longevity.
So in 20 years, Jackie and I will be still on the commission, but the meetings will be at our nursing home. Go ahead.
Thank you. We'll move up to the second floor.
Yep. On the second floor, we took the main atrium space, the border, as there's columns at each four quarters, which led an opportunity to put an accent band aligning with the plate of those columns, and then wrapping that border around the staircase. Again, we use a light carpet as your walking path, and the darker one for the stack space or any accent location space. There's some study desks over here, so we separated that using the light gray as a fun accent for that zone. Did the same thing for the historical space in this room, aligning with the windows and the door, just bringing that carpet down. For the meeting room space, aligning it with the wall locations, but creating a border around it. And then this zone is for their IT.
Now, the marble room's in the middle on the right, right?
Yes, yep, the marble area.
We doing anything in that area or not?
We ripped up the existing carpet that's in that space, and the tile is in wonderful shape. It's just a matter of cleaning the adhesive from that carpet installation, and then we'll put down the new carpet tile, edge bind it, and for acoustic reasons, those areas need some kind of carpet.
So to be clear, the intention at the mosaic areas are to first remove the existing carpeting that's in there, clean the adhesive off of the mosaic area, address any kind of repair for loose mosaic tiles or anything there, and then to place a edge-bordered replacement carpeting so that you can see both the mosaic as well as have the acoustical benefits and the wear and tear and the quietness of carpet in the center of the room. That's the intention there.
Okay. Because that is, in my opinion, the nicest room in the entire city.
We did reach out to Walter Stitt when we were doing this, because he was the director for so many years before me, before the new entrance. And he said acoustically, the two side rooms, the large print room and the reading room, definitely need carpet, because we all love that mosaic floor so much. It would be nice to see more of it, but the sound, he said, would be unbearable.
So this is a compromise.
It's the same with what we have now. We have carpet on those two side rooms now. It just would be newer carpet with new adhesive, and
So there's mosaic underneath those two side rooms?
there is.
So the old portion of the library, the two side rooms in the middle, that's all marble underneath?
We call it the marble lobby because the columns and the walls are marble. It's mosaic. I honestly don't know what the material is. I assume it's marble, but
There's some marble thresholds and the stairs in here, the treads are marble, but the inset is a mosaic.
Which is a tile.
So underneath, it's some sort of tile.
It's a mosaic tile pattern with small, intricate tiles with grout.
Is there any way that, I'm just thinking out loud here, but that we could expose in those two side rooms some of the tile or mosaic without compromising the noise issue?
The border is still visible.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think it's like 30 inches.
Yeah, there's this beautiful black border of the mosaic tile, and then there's about like 2 rows of a white mosaic tile, and then it transitions to like.
What I just meant was whether we could expose a strip that paralleled the stacks or something in some places, just to make it, be able to see more of it.
Maybe the band up the middle
Yeah.
can get
Yeah.
omitted or something, and we do something to expose it in that area
Yeah.
Would that work, Amy, to expose a little bit more of it?
at the fireplaces
yeah,
or
I'd
something.
be open to seeing what that looks like.
You are gonna get the movement of chairs, study chairs, possibly making noise on the floor for the tile.
You could just do strips too to align with the columns that go through. It doesn't have to be like the entire center section, but we could look at different options.
Yeah, I think it's worth looking at whether we can expose a little bit more of the beauty of what was, that was the original entrance to the library. Came up the exterior stairs that are closed down, and that was where the circulation desk was, right, Amy?
This is all still exposed.
Yes, I'm just wondering about the two rooms on either side.
We'll
whether
explore
we can
that.
do
Yeah.
a little bit more there of exposing.
Are there any ADA compliance issues if got a hard surface as opposed to a carpeted area, or is it mainly just the acoustics that would be the reason you want to keep carpet?
Acoustics was the driver, but all of the transitions will be ADA compliant, so we wouldn't introduce or want to introduce a tripping hazard. I mean,
No, I mean,
yeah,
I was more thinking it's like slippery surface, or I didn't know if that is a issue.
yeah, so slip coefficient's always a concern of ours, and it's something that we pay attention to. I don't think that the floor that's down there is going to be an issue, though.
Yeah, especially because you're not using that entrance, so you're not coming in with like wet feet onto the hard surface. You know, you're coming through the vestibule, you're already cleaning your shoes off, but the center is exposed mosaic right now, and I don't know if you've had any issues of falling.
yet.
Yeah.
And it is also on the second floor, but on the first floor, as soon as you come in the building, after you go through the vestibule and the walk-off mat, you come right into terrazzo, so the same kind of coefficient. So you have much greater areas of slip potentiality elsewhere in the building than you do in the mosaic areas, so.
Any other questions on the second floor? We on to the third?
Third floor is the same outlining, border around the stack space, accent areas. LVT in the break room. And the third floor is pretty straightforward.
Where, I see here vinyl tile and carpeting, where, point out here what areas are which?
Sure. So the LVT is the kitchenette and this break room lounge space for them and the janitor's closet with a mop sink over here. So that is the only luxury vinyl tile on this floor level.
All the rest is carpet.
Yep,
But-
yep, we have a walk-off mat, an elevator, if we can afford, new tile in the restrooms, we show it, and then also, an alternate for rubber stair tread in the staircase as well as the main staircase.
Yeah, one of the potential value management conversations I've been having with LOB and the team is electric rooms, janitorial closets, and other service areas. Most of them are currently exposed concrete, and so the question is, yeah, I realize these are small areas individually, but in total they add up to enough to warrant the conversation to see if we didn't want to leave them all exposed concrete, maybe seal them or do something. But rather than running luxury vinyl tile into a janitor closet or an electric closet.
Could you just put epoxy paint down or
Yeah,
something?
you could do a lot of things. So I view that as an area where we're fine tuning the conversation to come to you with the best final product that is addressing the municipal needs appropriately. You know,
Well, personally, I'd rather spend the money in places the public walks and sees rather than on the floors of the janitor's closet.
that's been my operating assumption, and I've been conveying that at each of the different design plateaus. So we'll make sure that your sensibilities towards in providing value at the public areas is prioritized.
Are we on to the fourth floor?
Fourth floor, again, the main walking half of this corridor space with the light gray carpet, this office, half the dark gray as well as that office. New LVT for the tech services space, storage. And then we were proposing to refinish the hardwood flooring in here. It is in pretty rough shape, so it would be nice to refinish it. And then removing the area rugs that are in the office spaces and storage spaces now and replace it with new area rugs.
So one of the alternate deducts is to not provide the LVT, luxury vinyl tile, in the back of the house spaces, in the storage room or in the tech services. I think the solution is somewhere in between, where right now there's a gap in the floor where mechanical equipment used to be in the storage room. That, you know, as you talk about a trip hazard, or you talk about a difficulty in moving carts. So I think that there are some infill areas, maybe with just regular 12 by 12 VCT to match what's in the back of the house area. Again, it's not a public forward looking space, and so we're going to find a way to, yes, that is both economical but solves the need. I think that's really, we're at that transition point now that we have an understanding of cost and we have an understanding of value.
You have an opinion?
We're all about understanding the cost and value. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely ways we could save, and again, I don't want to retile closets and empty them for no good reason, but like the storage room is actually the Friends room, right, where they store the books for the book sale. There's a group of ladies who are up there every week who are managing spots with no tile where a cement pad was jackhammered out, right? So it was like, don't fall. So there's things that need to get done.
Is there a cost difference between the tile and the carpet?
Yeah, there would be.
In an order of magnitude kind of way, I'll tell you in a sec. Tile is approximately $8.75 a square foot. Actually, that's bathroom tile. Here, give me a sec. Resilient tile. Hold on one sec. I just want to find a good, so
Is the tile cheaper?
the
Or is it more
carpeting is about $6 a square foot for material only. The carpeting, and resilient flooring is, if I'm reading this correctly, more expensive. So the resilient flooring is more expensive than the carpeting.
Okay.
That's material only.
Yes, all things being equal, I think that the resilient flooring, all in, on a square foot basis is, based on the cost estimate from the estimator, is a little bit more on a square foot basis than the carpeting.
But if we want to look at multiple types of resilient flooring, you know, one for the spaces where people are going to be like downstairs on the first floor, we didn't really jump into that like activity space area. That's all called out to be vinyl tile. But if we want to do something more like a VCT in the
I don't think we
fourth
want to, but yeah, right, on the fourth floor, in the back
in
of the house space.
yes, in the
Yeah.
back of house space, yeah. So you would have a few different
Because
resilient
I
tiles.
want, the staff to be able to move their carts and stuff. But on the other hand, if we used a less expensive flooring in those back of the house areas, that might be a good cost savings.
Bought an epoxy floor.
Epoxy is painted floor, and so, yeah, in those areas where the exposed concrete is currently there, it can either be sealed with a clear seal that acts as a waterproofer so that water does not absorb into the concrete, or an epoxy-type paint in which, I don't know if it's any more dust controllable, but it's just another seal or a type of coating. So the epoxy coating is more of a robust coating than a sealer that actually embeds itself.
That'd be less expensive than tile.
Not necessarily. A lot of times with epoxies, you got to get the substrate like just right to prohibit, to make sure that the adhesion is there. If there's any.
That workroom is in bad shape.
If there's
yeah.
any stuff that's latent oils or anything else that's under there, that's just, if it's not prepped right, then you can lose adhesion with your epoxy, and it can actually turn into more of a
Yeah.
maintenance issue.
We'll talk about the electric room being its own solution, may be different than a janitorial closet, but up on that fourth floor in that workroom, I think a VCT or some sort, because that's what's there now, and there are gaps in it, and it needs to be, prepped and infilled with something.
Perhaps a lower quality.
That's another option too, and we do have it broken out, I believe, as one of the alternates right now, or when we get to that discussion point. So, where that falls within the alternates ordering can also come into play.
Yeah, we don't have to do any of that.
So there are a couple alternates as it relates to the wood flooring. There is wood floor refinishing. In some of the rooms, the wood floor is being primarily covered with an area rug. But it's $4,000 of savings to not refinish the wood floors up on the fourth floor. And I'm saying, if we're going to go in there and we're going to, address this, and we're going to have workers up there, right now, the building needs some attention and love from a facility care perspective. I would say, let's refinish all the floors, wood floors, and put in whatever finish, floor finishes that are there. But now you have a consistent, freshened floor for the next, 10 years, where it's maintenance-free, or it's maintainable and able to be upkept, have the right kind of upkeep.
So should we go to numbers now?
Sure. So what you have in front, do you have more?
Unless there's
The only
something
thing-
else that
the
you
only-
want to.
No, the material.
The only thing we have here is just the materials that we were talking about before, and if you've been on previous meetings of ours, these have been updated to the selected products, but we do run through each of the styles, what the sizes are, the construction of it, test results on flammability, smoke density. All the statistics are here. That went into validating the cost estimate,
And alternates.
as well as the alternates.
And one of the interesting things here is that the adhesives used to attach these to the floor are all low VOC. So whether it's a phase solution or a single phase in which nobody's in the library, the odors are, for the most part, benign and manageable, but we have the indoor air quality. There are a couple of areas that we would, get into some odorific type materials or adhesives, but generally speaking, the progression of the material has reduced odors.
So that just raises a question, because we have low VOC paint in a lot of places in this building, and whenever they would put a poster on the wall and with tape and take it off, the paint was starting to peel. Do the adhesives work? Are we confident in that?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's
And
different than the paint, because as soon as I heard him say it was VOC, I said, oh my God.
they also have an adhesive tab system now for, especially for the mosaic floor area. That way we're not running into the same issue cleaning if 20 years from now we're redoing this. So they're just tab systems that go on the floor at every corner of the tiling, and that's how it stays there.
Instead of the entire back of the tile.
Yeah, it's much better from a maintenance standpoint. For historic reasons, we're working on a project currently that has all historical wood flooring, but we have to, in some locations, put carpeting down, and this is what the solution is.
Some of the walk-off mats for the elevator that we're proposing, replacement
In the vestibule.
in the vestibule, thank you. Stair, and treads and risers and landings, visual accent strips, ceramic tile, and floor finish if we got into that, but at budget-wise, we'll see in a second, it's probably more likely going to be a spot repair with a unit cost type of scenario, rather than wholesale replacement.
And these get into alternate.
And then these are the alternates for some of the floor.
And we have a matrix of just comparing, contrasting the products, durability. The last pages are phasing plan.
Walk them through that real quick. Just what the intent was?
Sure. We met with the move manager, and she was just highly suggesting us doing one floor level at a time. We actually wanted to start with the fourth floor and then go to the floor one, and then 2 and 3, which that wasn't, it didn't matter which 2 or 3 or 3 or 2, but we were going to start with the fourth floor and then go to the first floor for phasing.
And how long are we looking at? What's the timing?
Okay, so from in and up to a 5-phase solution, I know that they just talked about.
5-phase.
There are 4 floors, and they were going to go from 4 to 1 to 2 to 3 or 3 to 2. But when we had it cost estimated, because of use of different areas, we wanted the cost estimator to anticipate up to 5 phases rather than 4 phases, to present basically the worst-case scenario,
Would that be like the first floor being 2 different phases?
or breaking out a
For
specific
the
area.
stairway, the stairways will be done in one. So we want to make sure that if the library is open, we always have to maintain right? It's a construction site for these small work areas, but we need to maintain ADA accessibility and everything else throughout the
Bathroom
area. So
accessibility and stairways and egress. So that's why we looked at it as
that
up to
fifth,
5.
that
So
fifth
if it
area.
was 5 phases, how long? would
Time
this-
duration for 5 phases was approximately 3 months
Okay.
to execute the entire 4-floor of up to 5-phase solution.
That was June, July, and August of this year. The library would be open at all times, correct? But it would also be the time when perhaps you get the heaviest use.
So we would have to hold all of summer reading programs off-site, which gives us less staff in a construction zone, managing workloads and, I'm gonna say irate patrons, saying, like, where's my computer, where's my bestsellers, where's my this is not what I planned for, so that'd be tricky.
Where would you move things to?
Different, the rec center, COA, art museum, Oak Knoll, we've been working with the partners that we always work with, like, hey, could we do story time at your place? Could we have a book group in the New Morins when it opens, that sort of thing.
John Moran told me he's hoping to be open for St. Patrick's Day.
Right. Writing that down. But, so, yeah, so there, we're doing lots of scenarios, and I really am concerned about how we get that communication out to people.
No one will be happy.
Yes, yeah, I agree.
Either way, either way.
What's the potential number of patrons that it impacts?
I'm so glad you asked.
One way versus
So we,
another? I mean,
our end-of-year statistics for all of 2024, on average, 6 days a week, 377 people through the door every day. That's our average number. That is a lot of people.
are there peak?
And does that alter by the month? In
Yes.
other words, and sometimes looking at the median becomes more important, right? So do you have those numbers?
I don't.
You don't. Is it safe to say that the use is heavier in July and August?
Oh, completely, yes.
Right.
Could there be twice as many people then and half as many people in January and February, or,
I don't think it's that big a difference.
but it's significant?
Could you use the school? I mean, the school's gonna be closed down over the summertime.
You know, we haven't talked about the schools, to be honest. That's something to think about.
Suffice it to say, we need to take a much closer examination as to what the, whether it be a single-phase or a multi-phase project, to find
Right.
a
And then the other
date
thing I was
range.
wondering about was, would it make sense if we did a 5-phase project to start it on Labor Day as opposed to the 1st of June?
Well,
Because of the summer programs and the heavier use.
well, we'll, over the next several weeks, as we fine-tune it, depending on your feedback tonight, whether or not we begin to move forward to construction documentation. So what the preliminary project budget that you have in front of you is based on the worst-case scenario for up to 5 phases. And so if we look at the hard costs, it was identified by A.M. Fogarty's estimate from 116 at $547,289 for all the flooring. Now, there are deduct alternates that reduce the cost and reduce accompanying the scope of the work in some instances. In addition to that, so that's the worst case. Within that 547,289, there's approximately $50,000 of design and estimating contingency. So I just want you to keep that in mind for a moment, because down below, at the very bottom of the page, Category 3, Project Contingency, is another $50,000. So one would be design and estimating, or, contingency, and then this would be owner contingency, if you will. So right now, we have in the overall project budget as presented here, of costs, we have $100,000 of contingency. So as I go down, there was $547,000 of hard costs for all the material and flooring, and then there was $125,000, which was provided by the move managers, or order of magnitude placeholder for
Mark, can we
5 phases.
just go back for 1 second? So out of that 547, if we were to choose perhaps a lower grade aisle for, say, the fourth floor, if we were to not do janitor's closets and other things, what would you,
Okay, so those, what I'd like to do is, those savings, I don't want to say they're de minimis, but they're not substantial. It's just a matter of identifying and having it documented as to the exact scope of work. So the marching orders that LLB had was to, as a flooring replacement project. And if you'll notice, on the back stairway, which is not used by public patrons, it's a emergency egress only, it's used by staff, it's used by janitorial and custodial staff. That right now is a unfinished concrete floor. There is the alternate, number 5, to delete rubber flooring at the rear stairway. That's a almost $28,000 number. So that's a back-of-the-house item that it was included within the entirety of the 547 on the first page, but it's something that obviously can be value managed out because the library's been there for a long time without having put that rubber flooring on the stair treads and risers. So that's an easy alternate, and I put in red, it could be higher on the list, because as you know, any alternates that get accepted or chosen by the owner, they must be accepted in order. You can't take 1 and then 5, you have to take 1, 2, and 3. So the ordering of alternates is also very important.
right? So I realize we gave you a mandate to do everything, but everything looks like it's a little bit too expensive, number one. And number two, we also want to give serious thought to phasing and the timing. So,
Right, I just wanted to
I
run
know
through.
I've jumped ahead a little bit, Mark, but, so that 547 number has about $50,000 of play in it?
Of contingency.
Yeah.
And a scope that may not actually be desired to be included in the final project.
Okay.
Whether it be a deduct alternate or not. Maybe the city says, we know we don't want this, or we know that we want to know what that cost is. So I'd like to have the flexibility of the deduct alternate. You could direct us and say, team, we don't want deduct alternates, we want add alternates. So the base price would have none of the alternates, and then add this, add this, add this. And then that way, you're looking at it in a different way, but we would be in alignment that we think a deduct alternate would be more appropriate.
Okay, well, when we get to that portion, I'm going to certainly ask the commission members to weigh in. So then on to moving services. It says store and return to library and phases. So would they be taking books off-site?
There are two opportunities. One, on the first floor in the meeting room, just inside the front entry. That room could be used to store the boxes of books. There are also going to be tables, movable, the FF&E, the furniture fixtures, and equipment. Some of it could be stored in there, but some of it would be stored off-site, whether it be a municipal location or at the movers bonded warehouse. So in a multi-phase solution, some of it could be stored there, and some of it would be removed off-site with probability.
And what would our guesstimate be if we went to closing the library down for a month? Would we save money on this item?
Yes, so obviously a single-phase moving project to take out all the furniture, fixtures, equipment, and the books and the bottom shelf or the bottom two shelves could be done with greater efficiency and would result in a lower cost. We're carrying approximately 10% savings for a single phase over a multi-phase project. A.M. Fogarty had given us that number on all of the flooring material, on the flooring project being done in phases, and we've carried that forward into the moving services. We'll fine-tune those numbers as we go.
So on that 547 number, there's a potential to save 10%?
55,000, 10% off of that by doing a single phase in lieu of multiple phases.
50 grand.
What's that?
That's 50 grand?
55.
55.
And then the moving would be another 12,500. So there's approximately $77,000.
But that raises another question in my mind, which is that if the entire library was closed and the entire building was given to the contractor, would we not be able to store things on the first floor and have to take more off-site?
Yeah, but whether they pack it up and move it and put it into their truck and drop it in their warehouse versus put it into a room there or somewhere else, that additional cost they're still not they're not multiple handling.
Might be some more truck trips, but it's still going to be some savings.
Absolutely.
Can you do half a floor area and then move the storage onto that?
I don't want to dictate means and methods. I think we leave that up to the move manager and the movers.
Yeah.
But I think with all this, the dust and the cleaning and everything, we really don't want to be pursuing that type of option. And all the books need to be put into boxes. They need to be categorized for reshelving later. So it's more than just moving everything over and then moving it back. It's not like you or I would do at home.
Yeah.
There's a science to this, and these guys
So
do
if
it
the-
all the time.
If the contractor's doing it, assuming the building's closed, the entire building's closed, wouldn't he be doing, or they be doing it by floor? There would be a progression anyway. which
Absolutely, there would be
would
a,
Probably be in parallel to if you do close a floor, close another floor, so. I don't
Generally, they like to work top down, so they're not dirtying the stuff that's brand new as they're trying to get to the top floor. So that's, again, means and methods, but that's most likely what they'll still start high and
They'll go
work their way.
4, 3, 2, 1.
That,
They'll go 4, 3, 2, 1.
most likely.
Okay, that makes some sense.
so, Mr. Chairman, in addition to the, 77,000 approximately savings of doing it in a single phase in lieu of multiple phases, there is also the elimination or vast reduction of indoor air quality monitoring and testing, some of the soft costs, the acceleration of the project being done in a month or less than a month as opposed to approximately 3 months. So there are a number of benefits, and the impact to the library staff and and team to manage a constantly changing, evolving situation and not having things that our patrons expect in the communications thereof. So there are a number of good and valid reasons as to why the city might want to consider a single phase over a multi-phase. It will save money, it will be done faster, but you just lose your sole, historic library for approximately a month while this project is being
Now, Amy, remind me, when we did the major project, weren't there times we were closed down?
It was during the pandemic.
Oh, so we were closed down anyway. Okay, but, again, well, before we get to that, let's look at the second page. What do you
Right,
got
so,
on the second page?
well, the bottom line on the first page is the entirety of the project, all 4 floors, everything that has been discussed heretofore, with $100,000 worth of contingency and some conservative estimating, I think, it was $887. So we have a maximum cap that was identified by Mason and was in the procurement packages that went out of $750,000. So this project right now at 887 is over budget, but it has that contingency. And on page 2, we have the alternates. So to delete the bathroom tile, there was a $59,541 deduct alternate cost estimate. Now, clearly, we are going to have to address some broken and missing tile, and as was stated earlier, we would address that in unit prices as we develop the overall, the project manual. So we wouldn't realize all 59.5 of the savings, but it would be far more substantial. There might only be $5,000 or so in tile work rather than 59. The second alternate was to delete the resilient flooring at the back of the house, 35,300 and thereabouts. And as we discussed, we're going to take another look at that, look at using a cheaper or a less expensive, I don't want to say cheaper, a less expensive VCT rather than the LVT, or other solutions that would yield, be an appropriate solution for the space that it is and the people who use it in order to be efficient, but not necessarily, it's not that much of a forward-facing space. Deduct, alternate 3 was about the wood floor refinishing at the carpeted rooms on the 4th floor. It's $4,000 savings, but I think that if we're going to be up there and we're going to be refinishing the floors in the hallways and at the areas that are all quenched out and really in need of some love and attention, I think we should probably do it all at the same time anyway.
Yeah, that doesn't make or break the project.
Right. Alternate 4 is one of my least favorite alternates, to delete the rubber flooring at the main stairway, because I happen to believe strongly, and I don't know, but I believe strongly that it is something that should be done and is probably even a code item. But I haven't spoken to Bill McDonough about it, but I do know that in every other municipal project that I've done in the past 15 years, for sight-impaired people, having the color transition that was shown in there, can you just go to that slide? The offsetting colors, the yellow highlight at the stair.
Doesn't have to be yellow.
I understand.
Yeah.
but
Thank you for taking that.
That transition is a code requirement so that sight-impaired people can actually see the risers and the landings.
It's textural too, so
Yeah.
sometimes it's just a groove and it's just
Grit, yeah.
But we don't want one of those surface-applied kind of,
Well, I have to
little-
tell you, I'm going to ask the commission to chime in on this, but my inclination is to have add alternates rather than deduct alternates. My inclination is to keep number 3 in and keep number 4 in, perhaps dumb down a little number 2. And I don't know what the bathroom floor tile issue is and how important that is, but if we could save $50,000 there, it sounds like it might be worthwhile, but I don't know. I haven't seen what they look like, and it's hard for me to say sitting here. And certainly the rear stairway, I think, could stay as it is, but those are my thoughts. I don't know what the rest of the commission thinks. Jerry, you have any thoughts?
I kind of agree with you. I also think that it would be better to do it in one phase. There's a substantial amount of money to be saved there that could be used to pay for some of these. Also,
It could allow us to put an add alternate in.
right.
Because of
Also,
savings
it's going to
elsewhere.
be a lot of grief for the library staff, one way or the other. So why not just bite the bullet and get it done with? It'd be less painful in the end.
Couldn't agree with you more. Andrew, you,
Yeah, just, Amy, the bathroom floors, I haven't been in them. Are they something that walk in, it looks like they need to be redone?
The men's room, the public men's room, when you first walk in, definitely you will notice it as soon as you walk in the door.
So,
but
But
is
it's-
there a concept of maybe redoing some of them and not all of them? Repairs in some and replacement in others?
or should it,
You could absolutely.
does it appear that it should just be replaced in its entirety?
It doesn't need to be done in its entirety, but there is repair that needs to get done. Does that answer your question?
Yes. I think I agree with Jack on which ads, or changing it to ads, and which ones should be removed, like number 5, I don't see a need for it. 2, is there any back of that? Is that something that you think is used?
I would be happy to save money there.
Okay. So
In other words, if we put a less expensive kind of tile in there and we save $10,000-15,000, that would be money we could use
Yep.
bathroom floors or some other area, right?
Exactly.
and I
Jerry?
believe the,
100% agreement that we should do it all in one shot, all at once, because the cost savings, and then you can take the money and apply it to something else that you need. And I agree with the deducts and everything.
Going to ads rather than
Yeah.
deducts. Jackie?
Totally agree, all the way.
Okay, so then that raises in my mind another question, which is, do we want this to be done during the month of June? Or do we want it to be done during the month of September? And how does that affect anything that you people are looking at? Because if it's done in June, school's still in session for most of the month. But it also, for the last 10 days, may not be in session. So do you have a preference on that? And does it make any difference to what you guys are doing? I mean, should we make this a Labor Day start just because of the use of the library?
If you think of the available installers throughout the Commonwealth and those doing summer slammers, they're going to be occupied during the months of June, July, and August doing summer slammers for schools. And so any ability, in my personal opinion, to move that may be beneficial for the crew that you get on your job.
They're looking to fill their fall schedule when
Correct.
their summer schedules.
So,
they know they're gonna be
so
full.
you're
Probably already-
endorsing a September project and.
I would strongly consider it with the opinion of everyone here, but I mean, we're all, you again, seem to be quite savvy with buildings within your city, and
You've
so.
been doing this for a while.
Experience, exactly. So if you ask for a bid for somebody to do work in the critical height of them trying to push out, other projects that they have on their books, you're going to get a higher number because they don't necessarily need your job to do their, to fulfill.
Well, and their resource allocation
Right.
is nuts. So here we are, it's the end of January for all intents and purposes. We haven't moved into construction documentation. We haven't, begun the procurement process. So if we don't have authorization and approval to go out to bid, have them complete the CDs, fine-tune the construction documents so that there is, as good as they can possibly be, we're not really going to end up in understanding the procurement from the state perspective and then the contracts with the city, the other aspects of it. The likelihood is we won't have anybody on board till the end of March, maybe early April. And then by the time we get submittals, have them order material, and begin the process, even if we wanted to start the job June 1 and get 90% of the way complete, or a substantial percentage of the way complete, I just wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable saying it's absolutely positively achievable. I think it creates an opportunity for a little bit of breath to improve, fine-tune, and make sure that every part of the procurement and the award is appropriate. So I think the start of, after Labor Day in September and be complete, and we can just do some minor contract modifications to address the hiatus. If it is a single phase, then we can also reduce the
We
cost
could
of.
still bid this sometime not too far off in the future, but tell them that the start date is
September 7th, whatever the.
whatever. So, now let me look at Amy again.
Panic in my face.
What do you think?
So I remember very early on talking about this with the mayor and with Mason, and my understanding was budget-wise, the project had to be complete by the end of September. From wherever the money was coming from, it had to be done by
Okay,
the
if
end of
it's like
September.
ARPA funds or something, it may have to be spent by September 30th?
Okay, so the ARPA, and to be verified, in my prior conversations with Mason, my procurement and that of the architect was done prior to the end of the year, and everything in task one, all pre-construction was using ARPA money so that it got spent first. Then, on top of that, there was some municipal funding, and I'm not aware of the September 30th end date was a goal in my understanding and a desire to have the project done by September 30th. I didn't think it was tied to the ARPA funding because the ARPA funding dollars were being spent first. It was my understanding. But we can verify that. I'll reach out to Brooke and Mason and ask him to update, give us clarification on the
Because if we
source.
started a week into September and we're finished by Columbus Day, what would you think, apart from funding?
It's a change of plans for me.
I understand that,
yeah,
but that's why we're sitting here
Yeah.
and taking the time to work this way through. I mean, we are over budget. We know some things we can change.
Right.
But there's going to be pain either way, right?
Exactly. So I'm all for closing for a month, and if September, and typically in September, numbers, use of the library does go down because everyone's getting ready for a new schedule. They're going to school, they're going to back to school nights, right? So that does make a lot of sense. We're hoping to kick off a new big read this year, which is clearly a big September, October thing. But we will plan accordingly. If we can't do it in June, then we will make September, Labor Day to Columbus Day work.
I mean, from listening to Mark, June may be a bridge too far anyway,
Yeah.
right?
I can't promise you that we could have a contractor with material on site starting in June.
And
that's a
and we all
concern.
know summer slammers from other projects that we've done, and so we know that
And we want the 18th.
20th of June, there's going to be a lot of projects that need to get done.
More of a reason why you would want to do it in 1 month as opposed to stretching out to over several months. Because you'd have to move the start date out.
Well, we wouldn't necessarily, I mean, when it's a multi-phase project, it's really done with, 2 or 3 guys, rather than bringing in a massive
Oh,
crew
okay.
and having them
Yeah.
work top-down and create a cycle. I think savings are going to be larger than, as discussed in tonight's meeting, because it's now a more desirable, more attractive project for a number of reasons, beyond just, because of the time, because of the single phase. It just becomes more desirable.
And from a health standpoint, I mean, yes, we do air quality testing and we do our best, but if they just take the building and it's completely clean when you reopen, to me, there's a lot to be said.
She's the only one with a
for it.
headache. She's the only one with a headache.
Are
So
there-
do you need to talk to your board?
I will talk to my board.
And I mentioned this to the mayor when we were meeting on something else, either yesterday or the day before. They're all blurring into one. And she said that she just wanted to check with the personnel department to see if there was any issues caused with union contracts or anything. So we clearly need to make sure that whatever we do, that we don't cause personnel issues.
Yeah, and I will absolutely meet with Lynn, but honestly, as we're all talking, I'm thinking about how we can keep our part-time folks busy doing other things and doing outreach, and I think we can make a month work.
So is the sense of this room?
That was going to be one of my questions. Are there operational concerns with closing for a month versus if you're partially open, you still got activities going on and employees that are primary staff?
That's gonna be a great discussion with HR, but I have no doubt that we will make it work.
Negative or positive impacts?
Yeah.
Well, it could be some negatives if it's a phased project over 3 months and people are
Yeah, I
saying
think the
that-
month
that,
is
you
gonna
know,
be
I'm concerned
easier.
about the air quality of my work environment.
And the patrons, instead of it seem like it's dragging on, whether they're able to use the library partially, would they kind of say, no, there's construction going on, I'm not going there anyway? So
I think
do you
it's
lose
so
those-
much cleaner
you
to
losing
say,
them
we're
for-
gonna be closed for brand-new sparkling floors for 1 month. Please go to Seekonk, please go to North Attleboro, or, meet us at the rec center.
Less impact.
We can do that, and we can send that message out so early, versus getting a last minute. We were gonna close the
This-
second
this
floor,
week,
but now we
this-
close the third
This
floor.
week, this area is closed. Oh, I thought it was next week.
Right. Right.
I look at things, first and foremost, from a health and safety standpoint. I've been an OPM on 14 K through 12 schools within the Commonwealth over the past, 30 years. And regardless of the indoor air quality testing and reporting and the certification of clean air that is, the grievances
Still a smell.
always happen. Somebody said, oh, I got these massive headache, it's because of the air quality. Well, here's the report from yesterday. And, you know, it's cleaner than the air outside, or it's non-impactful.
Yeah, but I
They
know,
don't-
but I know how I feel, and I'm not feeling well, and I'm going
Exactly.
home.
So, the idea of working in an unoccupied building and expediting it has both health, safety, community-based, we can avoid and mitigate some adverse consequences, but others get created. But the financial impact, the savings, and the time, and you have a brand-new, fresh building on the envelope. Now you're gonna get, basically one on the inside as you come in and have new flooring, and it's not gonna look as tired and dated. So, if you're asking for a recommendation, I love the idea of a single phase. I just thought that it was not as desirable from the city's perspective. If you're telling me that,
Oh, I think we need the mayor and the personnel department and the finance department all to concur with what we're doing. But it seems to me clear that the sense of this room is that we make this a project from early in September to early in October, that we do it in one phase, and that we look carefully at the numbers here and see how we can massage them.
Sure.
And maybe go with some add alternates in the event that the bidding climate is what we think it is.
okay, so what I'd like to do is take this preliminary overall project budget. I'd like to do a side-by-side, multi-phased, single-phased. I'd like to rejigger it with base price and then add alternates and also alternate materials that we've talked about tonight with back-of-the-house areas. So if you can give us about a week or so, we can update
We have a
that.
meeting in 2 weeks, right?
Sure.
Which is February 5th. So I would like to have us on the agenda again for February 5th at City Hall, and whether you need to be in person or remote's fine, doesn't matter, just arrange however you have to do that.
Okay.
But I think that it would be important for us to answer all the questions before we give a final direction, but you know what our thought is. But if we can get all the questions answered in the next 2 weeks, then we could then take a vote to authorize you to proceed in the way that we hope we can.
Would you be looking for a presentation like we just showed, or strictly looking at more of what Mark's talking about, which is answering the questions that you have?
I think just answering the questions.
Fair
I mean,
enough.
As far as I can see around the room, everybody's satisfied with the what.
That's great news.
It's the how and the when that we really need to focus on now.
All important questions.
Mr. Chairman, just a question. Right now, we are at very close to the end of DD phase.
Yeah.
And while I recognize that we're talking about extending the timeline and increasing the ability of us to extend it out over a longer period of time, I'm wondering if it doesn't make sense to at least have the conversation, to take your temperature and give us direction on whether or not it makes sense for us to move forward into construction documentation for the specifications for the front end, understanding that we're going to be making some modifications to some materials, but allowing the progression to happen in a continuous manner as opposed to having to just stop.
Yeah, I don't think anybody here has a problem with that.
No.
Okay.
But I think we need to be sure in 2 weeks that we're able to go forward with one phase and the time that it would occur.
Certainly, okay. Do you have an answer, a clear sense of,
Yeah.
okay.
And when were we planning on opening bids for this project?
Well, the original overall project timeline had him opened, I think, at the end of February. I now see that is going to be extended out just due to the requirements of procurement. I'll update the overall project timeline and include that
Maybe
in,
the end of March?
sure, or, yeah, depending on the feedback that we get as of February 5th. But I think springtime, whether it be late March, early April, or wherever, it's in that range. I'll update the
You guys
timeline.
are okay with that? Sure. And the commission's okay with that?
Yep.
Seeing nodding heads
Yes.
all around. Okay, well, I think we've had a very productive meeting. Is there anything else that anybody needs to bring up?
Just a quick question, going back to the design. On the first floor, floors 2, 3, and 4 seem more of a traditional patterns and squared areas. And down on the first floor, it reminds me of like a digital camo, where some of the tiles are different colors. Is that something that over time may not age well? Like you'll be able to say, oh, that was done in the mid-2020s in 10 or 15 years?
But
Like,
what
is
you're
it something
speaking of is
that's-
really only in the children's room.
Children's room.
And it was done to create bifurcated sections or different areas. The
Yeah, I was
little-
just thinking maybe, I like the way it comes off, but is maybe, like how it's splotchy, is there, Amy, do
So if you could picture a kid's playroom, like that area, like on the far right, so there are books and bookshelves around the edges, like under the windows on that
Yeah,
tall.
I'm
But
familiar.
everything else in the middle, there's a train table and there's like little PlayStations on wheels, like with locks and
Yeah.
knobs. And we have like we switch out themes. So there's a construction theme toy box for 6 weeks, and then there's a woodland animal theme. So it's controlled chaos. Let's call it controlled chaos. So I think that the patterning is really going to make it fun and blend in and give some parents a little, like a breather to be like, it's okay for my kids to play here.
Yeah, I was thinking more in the green and the blue areas where you've got a gray tile here and there.
I think it's enough. I really love that X, and then I did go visit the Franklin Library, and they have some, in the kids' room, there's like a colorful pattern in some of the carpet, and then there's these like squares, geometric shapes of just like blue that pulls out. And
I would say that the reason that they made planks was to do just
stuff like
this.
that.
Yeah.
That's
Very black and white in my head, so.
It's also a way to transition from the two colors
Right.
versus
So it's
just
not
having
hard.
those hard lines.
right.
Be a little more playful.
Oh, as long, if that's suitable and kind of what's common and not too.
It's interesting, and that's why we didn't go with, I really personally prefer like that nature theme and the other
one.
one, because we have these great nature-themed murals, and it looked like a water line, and it looked like a grass line, and it looked like
calmed it down.
outcroppings. But my staff were like, you are nuts, we don't see what you're seeing. That doesn't look like the beach to me at all.
Yeah, especially the first round. Where
Yeah.
we had a hexagon pattern that was more
Yeah.
beachy looking.
So
They-
I see what
they
you're
calmed it
saying,
down.
but I think I like what we have, the staff, again, and we've got 24 people with lots of opinions.
Okay.
I think it's good.
been
And if
vetted
we
and-
ever had to, we talk about switching out tiles, and I know that we'll have attic stock of the various colors, but should we ever have to like switch it out a little bit, it won't be as obvious that this is like the weird patch where we spilled the coffee.
And if you only had
right?
a gray, if you threw a gray one where everything was blue,
Yep,
Yeah.
yep,
Wouldn't know, yeah.
exactly.
okay.
Yep. Thank you for asking that.
Okay, so have we reached the end point? Motion would be in order to adjourn at 6:53.
So moved?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.